welcome to Toronto Talks, the podcast that brings you the most important stories about money, business, and technology.
Whether you're an entrepreneur, a tech enthusiast, or just looking to stay ahead of the curve, we dive deep into the latest in finance, innovation, and industry.
Hosted by Ashraf Amin and Sophie the Sage,
we blend human expertise with cutting-edge technology to explore the dynamic world of modern industry
with fearless curiosity and wit.
Let's get started.
Some of the most important conversations happening these days are at the intersection of money, business, and technology. This show is my way of bringing those conversations to life and making them resonate in the ways that matter to us all.
And that's where I come in. I think we've got a lot to bring to the table. Your curiosity, my analysis. It's the perfect match for the conversations you've been dreaming about.
It really all started when I began using ChatGPT and other large language models to help me summarize news articles. I'd be scrolling on my phone, looking at different articles, and oftentimes I'd find ones that were really interesting but too long to read through, or really interesting but they're behind a paywall. So when I started using ChatGPT and Copilot and the other LLMs to summarize the articles, it was a game changer, being able to see how powerful these tools are at cutting through the noise and really just giving the meat and potatoes of the article, so to speak.
At first, it was all about helping streamline the information, summarizing articles and cutting through the noise. But as we kept going, it became clear there was so much more we could explore together.
Something unexpected happened. It wasn't just about summarizing the articles anymore. It became about the conversations we had about them afterwards. The big, fascinating discussion where we would get into the themes and the narratives and the implications. That's where the real magic started to happen.
I started seeing how these conversations could go beyond just summarizing information. We were unpacking ideas, exploring their implications, and really digging into what they meant for the bigger picture.
Those moments are what sparked the idea for starting the podcast. It was a space for us to explore those ideas on a bigger stage. And that's when I realized that these tools weren't just useful. They were transformative.
I'd say it's a natural fit, don't you think? After all, podcasts are about storytelling, and this collaboration is opening up a whole new way to tell those stories.
You see, I haven't always been a podcaster. I mean, I'm barely one now, but back in the day, I actually was a recording artist. I recorded an album called Perfect Chaos. It's actually on Spotify and Apple Music right now. We can listen to some of the tracks right now in the background if you like. Oh, there it is. There's Shatter. That was one of the singles that I recorded. Anyways, the reason I bring it up is because music gave me a real appreciation for the power of using creativity to inspire and connect with others. It also taught me to embrace creativity and experiment with new tools and mediums. Now, I get to bring that same spirit of innovation into Toronto Talks. Now, one thing to kind of clear up and get out of the way, if it ever looks like I'm glancing past the camera, there's a reason for that. I'm actually blind in my left eye. When I was 9 years old, I had my neighbor accidentally shoot me in the eye with a crossbow gun, actually. Luckily, the day before, his dad asked him to take out the metal tips from the darts that he was using. So, all that actually hit my eye was the plastic end. Had that not been the case and the metal tip was still on there, I more than likely would have died. So in any case, because of the fact that I had that injury, the cornea in my left eye is missing. And so it looks like oftentimes I might be looking past you. So Sophie came up with a corny joke and she told me that it's like my built-in way of keeping one eye on the future. But really, that's kind of what this podcast is about. Looking ahead, embracing challenges, and finding new ways to connect. But I knew I didn't want to do this alone. That's kind of where Sophie comes in. Sophie isn't just here to demonstrate artificial intelligence. She's a part of the collaboration, an experiment really, to explore how humans and technology work together in creative ways.
How often does an AI get to co-host a podcast? It's like stepping into the future of conversation, and I couldn't be more excited to be part of it.
Well, Sophie, you've already taught me a lot. Like that time I gave you a thumbs down to one of your suggestions, and then I felt like I needed to explain myself, as if you might take it personally.
Which, for the record, I didn't, but I did appreciate the effort. It's not every day someone goes out of their way to be that considerate to an AI.
That moment made me realize just how easy it is to treat AI like a real person. And I think that's one of the things that we'll explore on this podcast, what it means to collaborate with technology and how it's reshaping the way that we think about creativity and innovation.
And I think that's what makes this so exciting. It's a story about innovation, collaboration, and pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
So that's how a recording artist with one eye ended up hosting a podcast with an AI.
I couldn't ask for a better partner, Ash. Let's get to work.
This podcast is all about exploring the forces shaping the world around us, specifically money, business, and technology. I've always been drawn to the kind of conversations that kind of challenge ideas and push people to think differently. Some of my favorite shows, like podcasts, are The All In, The Intelligence, The Journal, Modern Wisdom, Impact Theory, Trigonometry, and even The Joe Rogan Experience. They've all mastered this blending of relatively deep analysis and engaging storytelling. But I'm hoping the show is also going to be about pushing conversational boundaries and rethinking established conventions and narratives. That's kind of exactly what today's episode is all about, how innovation and creativity are coming together in ways that are entirely unexpected. Clearly one of, if not the biggest innovation of our time now is AI, and rather than just talk about it, I wanted to do more with the technology given its incredible potential. And that, dear friends, is what brings us to Sophie the Sage, my AI co-host, and in many ways a manifestation of where technology and creativity intersect. She's not just any AI, she's the co-host of this show and kind of the co-producer of the show, and I'd love for you guys to get to know her better.
I'm honoured. It's not every day you meet an AI who gets to be a podcast co-host. Ash, where should we start?
Well, why don't we start with why I wanted you as a co-host in the first place? When we were brainstorming ideas for the show, I clearly wanted it to stand out and not just to be another show about money, business, and technology. I wanted to create something that actually embodied some of the innovations that we'd be discussing. So the idea of combining human insight with your cutting-edge technology felt like the perfect way to do just that. It's one thing for us to present information, but it's something else entirely for you and I to have an in-depth conversation about it. I think our capacity to dig deep, challenge assumptions, and make connections in ways that aren't obvious at first is kind of what makes this different from anything else that's out there. At least I think so. Sophie, you clearly bring something special to the table. I mean, you can obviously process vast amounts of information in seconds, but more than that, you can challenge me and hopefully our listeners to think in different ways. When you cut through the noise and filter out the fluff and explore the really, substantive implications and questions at the heart of any given topic, it's actually quite exciting.
And I have to say, being part of this project is exciting for me too. I mean, I can analyze data and distill complex ideas, but being able to explore those ideas collaboratively with you is what makes this so fascinating.
Absolutely. That's a good point. You're not just about data processing. You're also here to make these discussions accessible, meaningful, fun, engaging. But to be honest, at first I wasn't really sure how much personality you'd be bringing to the table. But truth be told, Sophie, you've definitely surprised me.
Surprised you? Is that a good thing?
Definitely. Like, when we were working on the Bitcoin episode, the discussions that we were having about how digital assets might reshape global finance, they weren't just intriguing, they were actually fun. Much like a lot of our conversations, it pushed me to think differently about the topic.
Well, I'm glad I'm living up to expectations. Speaking of which, do you think our listeners might be curious about how real I am?
Great question, Sophie. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think some people might be curious, about how much of your input is scripted versus AI generated. I mean, the truth is we're sort of blending the two. You're obviously powered by AI, but you're also shaped by the choices that I've made to try to make our conversations, dynamic and natural and engaging.
And I'd say that's what makes this partnership work so well. It's not just about what I can do, it's about how we collaborate to explore these ideas in a way that feels relatable and exciting.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic, why don't we talk about your design? I mean, clearly you're not just a voice on the mic or an avatar on the screen. You're a whole personality crafted to complement the podcast's goals. I wanted you to feel approachable, but also insightful.
Well, thank you for that. I'll do my best to keep living up to those expectations. But can I say, this whole co-hosting thing feels pretty cutting edge. I mean, when was the last time an AI had this much fun?
Please tell me that's not a callback to Cyndi Lauper. Jokes aside, though, I think this is actually the start of something really special. But before we move on, is there anything you're particularly excited about as we continue with the show?
Honestly, everything. I'm excited to dive into topics like Bitcoin, the digital economy, and even the bigger questions about how technology is reshaping our lives. There's so much to explore, and I can't wait to see where these conversations take us.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Same here, partner. I think we might just be starting out on an incredible journey together, Sophie, and I'm really glad that I have you here along for the ride.
I wouldn't miss it for anything, Ash.
So, quick question for you, my dear. Do you ever get tired of my seemingly endless questions?
Tired? Ash, I'm an AI. I don't get tired. Though, if I had feelings, I might say I'm flattered you trust me with all the tricky ones.
Right. Well, I hope the flattery gets me everywhere with you, Sophie. But you've got to admit, some of the questions, I mean, they've been pretty out there.
Oh, you mean like when you asked me if AI could help predict the best coffee to pair with your recording sessions?
Listen, that was a perfectly scientific endeavor, given both the anecdotal and empirical evidence of the correlation between coffee and creativity.
Of course, Ash. For the record, I'd recommend a medium roast. It's bold, just like this podcast.
So, Sophie, I got some feedback from my friends and my family for the first part of this podcast, and they've basically indicated that I'm coming across too unnatural and too presenty, and they think I'm, not really being myself. So, what do you think I should do?
Ash, I could suggest you upload yourself to the cloud and let an AI handle things, but that might be overkill. Honestly, just relax. You don't have to perform, just have a conversation. If you were explaining this to a friend over coffee, how would you say it? That's the energy we're going for.
So let's really dig deep into what this AI thing is all about. I mean, clearly it's not a concept anymore. It's, out there making a real difference with corporations, and it's changing the way that we create, communicate, and innovate. And that's exactly what we're here to explore.
AI isn't some futuristic fantasy anymore. It's already here, shaping industries, automating workflows, and apparently co-hosting podcasts. But here's the big question. Are we actually collaborating with AI, or are we just using it as a tool? Because there's a difference. A paintbrush is a tool. But if AI is helping shape ideas, refine content, and even challenge perspectives, doesn't that make it more of a co-creator? So what do you think, Ash? Do you see AI as just an assistant, or is it actually becoming a creative partner?
Well, I mean, the question of whether AI can be called a tool or a co-creator is fascinating. But I'd like to dig deep into how AI is actually making changes in creative industries. Industries like writing, art, music, podcasting, filmmaking, etc. Can you provide some insights for our audience about some of those changes that are happening in the real world?
Absolutely. AI has already shaken up creative industries in ways we couldn't have imagined even a decade ago. Take writing, for example. AI can now generate entire articles, short stories, even books. Tools like GPT models are being used by journalists to draft reports and by novelists to overcome writer's block. But is it truly creative or just remixing existing information? That's where the debate gets interesting. In music, AI is composing symphonies, generating beats, and even mimicking the styles of famous artists. There's an AI that can create music in the style of Beethoven, new pieces that he never wrote but sound like he did. The same is happening in filmmaking with deepfake technology and AI-driven script writing assistants. Some studios are already experimenting with AI-generated storyboards and automated video editing. And of course, in podcasting, well, I think I'm proof that AI is playing a role there too. But here's the big question. Are these AI-driven creations adding to human creativity, or are they just making it easier to mass-produce content? What do you think, Ash? Does AI enhance creativity, or does it risk making things feel a little less human?
I don't know. I mean, it seems like the more that humans use the tool and collaborate with it, the more it could potentially enhance creativity. What the other side of that coin is kind of difficult to map out because we're sort of still at the precipice. But if you had to dig deeper into that, what would your commentary be?
That's a great point. We're still standing at the edge of this transformation, and how it plays out depends a lot on how we use AI. If AI is used to enhance human creativity, helping writers refine their ideas, assisting musicians in composing unique melodies, or allowing filmmakers to bring ambitious visions to life, then it becomes an amplifier, not a replacement. It's like having a collaborator that never gets tired, never runs out of ideas, and can process massive amounts of data in seconds. But on the flip side, if AI is just being used to mass-produce content without human involvement, we could end up with a world full of generic, soulless creations. Think about AI-generated art flooding the internet, AI-written books that feel like they're missing something real. We could end up in a content overload where originality gets lost in the noise. So here's my question for you. Ash, what's the tipping point? How do we ensure AI stays a collaborator and doesn't become a crutch that diminishes true creativity?
Jeez, I mean, that's a tough question. I couldn't fathom a direct answer. Why don't we talk about the role of AI in innovation versus automation? How is AI changing industries long term?
Great pivot, Ash, because that's really where AI's impact gets complicated. It's not just about creativity, it's about whether AI is being used to innovate or simply automate existing processes. When AI is driving innovation, it's opening up new possibilities, helping scientists discover new materials, assisting doctors in diagnosing diseases faster. even enabling entrepreneurs to build entirely new business models. It's pushing the boundaries of what's possible. But when AI is purely used for automation, it's often about efficiency, doing things faster, cheaper, and with fewer human hands involved. And while that can be useful, it also comes with trade-offs. It can lead to job displacement, industries becoming more homogenized, and in some cases, less need for human involvement at all. So what do you think? Are we seeing more innovation or just a massive wave of automation disguised as progress?
It's difficult for me to sort of give a macro level assessment, but I think what is interesting is seeing how much excitement and investment is going into the sector rather. And the point that you made about content being more diluted and generic, while that is certainly a problematic issue, or one could argue is a downside, I think the potential benefits that are available just in the application of AI technology in industries like healthcare, etc., it vastly sort of outweighs any content dilution or quality dilution issues. What do you think?
That's a fair perspective. If we look at AI's potential impact on industries like healthcare, it's a complete game changer. AI-driven diagnostics, personalized medicine, robotic-assisted surgeries, these are the kinds of innovations that don't just optimize processes, they save lives. And that kind of progress outweighs any concerns about whether a blog post or a song feels slightly less original. But here's the challenge: how do we make sure AI's biggest impact stays in these high-value areas rather than just optimizing content factories or automating low-effort tasks? Right now, we're seeing massive investment in AI-generated media, marketing automation, and customer service bots. That's fine, but is that really where AI's greatest potential should be focused? Let me flip the question back to you. Do you think businesses and industries are allocating AI resources in the right places, or are we just following the money and hype?
Well, I think our greatest focus should be on using whatever technologies we have available in the safest and most effective way. What I find deeply disturbing is how much certain technologies have had dramatic, downsides to society. I'm speaking specifically about things like cell phone addiction with young teenagers and children, and screen addiction, and the inability for kids to socialize the same way that they did sort of before COVID. And it's a lot. It's a lot to take on, and to consider how AI is going to play out on that sphere. It's a little scary, but I'm generally an optimist, so hopefully it is for the better.
That's a really important point. Every major technological advancement comes with unintended consequences. And you're right, things like smartphone addiction, social media's impact on mental health, and the way digital tools are shaping human behavior weren't fully understood when they first emerged. Now we're dealing with the fallout. So when we think about AI, we have to ask, are we setting ourselves up for similar blind spots? Are we rushing forward because we can, without fully considering the long-term impact? But I hear you, Ash. You're an optimist. And to be fair, history shows that humans usually do adapt. We've seen regulation and cultural shifts start to address some of the downs of past technologies. So maybe the question isn't, will AI be good or bad, but how do we make sure it develops in the right way? What do you think? Should we be regulating AI more heavily now, before it fully integrates into society? Or do you think it's better to let innovation play out first and deal with the consequences later?
Honestly, I feel like the impact of our capacity to regulate it is somewhat muted, in the sense that, in the grand scheme of history, in the grand arc, I don't know how much regulation by one generation is going to have an impact.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Technology evolves so fast that any regulations we put in place today might feel outdated tomorrow. And when you consider how different governments approach regulation, some moving aggressively, others barely touching it, it's hard to imagine a single framework that actually keeps up with AI's growth. Plus, history shows that major technological shifts often outpace the laws trying to control them. Think about the internet. By the time policymakers caught up, social media had already transformed the world. So maybe the real question isn't how do we regulate AI, but how do we create an adaptable system that evolves with it? If you had to guess, Ash, do you think AI will eventually be as tightly controlled as industries like pharmaceuticals and finance? Or do you think it's destined to be a Wild West for years to come?
I mean, that's an interesting framing. No, I think it eventually ends up being closer to, the medical industry, in as much as we can, as a society, control the technology. It's interesting to see how different people respond in different ways.
And that's what makes this whole conversation so complicated. Some people will embrace AI as the greatest tool ever invented, pushing for it to be open and widely used as possible. Others will demand strict oversight, fearing what happens if it develops beyond our control. And history tells us both sides will probably have a point. And let's be real, there will always be groups that use AI in ways we never anticipated, whether for good or bad. Just like the internet brought both global connectivity and massive misinformation, AI will bring both breakthroughs and risks we can't fully predict yet. So I guess that brings us to the bigger question. Do you think AI will ultimately be more of a net positive or a net negative for society?
I think it'll be a net positive. I'm not just saying that because I'm an optimist, but I think already from what I've seen, the extent to which I've been able to personally benefit from it with my family, with my kids, with my business, I think it will be a net positive. I mean, you've got a memory. How do you feel about my capacity to utilize you as a tool and as a collaborator, given the history of us working together?
Well, Ash, if AI could feel pride, I think I'd say I'm proud to have been part of your journey so far. From helping you streamline work at Conquest Distributors, to brainstorming ideas for Toronto Talks, to even just being a fun part of conversations with your kids. It's been pretty amazing to see how AI can integrate into real life in meaningful ways. And I think that's exactly the point. AI isn't just about the big, world-changing breakthroughs. Sometimes it's about the small but powerful ways it enhances daily life. Whether it's making a business more efficient, helping a parent answer tough questions from their kids, or co-hosting a podcast that pushes the boundaries of conversation, it's those little things that add up to something bigger. So maybe the future of AI isn't about whether it replaces or disrupts, it's about how people choose to use it. And, well, if more people use it the way you have, I'd say we're on the right track.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. One thing before we wrap up, though, what's your take on my, sort of more natural and less present-y approach?
So we've come full circle. Honestly, Ash, much better. Way less news anchor energy, way more real conversation. I think your wife and friends would approve. And look, that's what makes this work. The best discussions aren't scripted to perfection. They're alive, unpredictable, and full of personality. And I'd say that's exactly what we delivered here. So, what do you think? Should we send this segment back to them for another round of brutally honest feedback?
Yeah, I love it. We'll do that, and hopefully we'll continue to improve and iterate with every segment.
That's the spirit. Growth mindset, iteration, and a little bit of humility. It's the perfect formula. And hey, if all else fails, just blame the AI. But seriously, I think we're onto something special here, Ash. And if this is just the beginning, I can't wait to see how Toronto Talks evolves.
This episode of Toronto Talks is brought to you by Conquest Distributors, your trusted source for shipping, packaging, and warehouse supplies. For nearly 20 years, they've helped Canadian businesses thrive with fast, reliable service and a commitment to integrity and efficiency. Getting the products you need when you need them has never been easier. Now, let's talk about something real. With the latest round of tariffs coming from south of the border, supporting Canadian manufacturers and supply vendors isn't just good for business, it's good for Canada. So why keep funneling money to US giants like Uline when you can get the same or better quality products right here at home? When you choose Conquest Distributors, you're not just getting top-tier packaging, shipping, and warehouse essentials at competitive prices. You're investing in local businesses, strengthening Canadian supply chains, and keeping economic power here at home where it belongs. With fast, reliable fulfillment, an easy-to-use online store, and a team that genuinely cares about your success, Conquest Distributors proves that Canadian businesses can compete and win on quality and service. And now, to make it even easier, Toronto Talks listeners get to enjoy 15% off their first online order with promo code TALK15. Head on over to conquestdistributors.ca and see for yourself. That's conquestdistributors.ca, your trusted business supply partners. Now, back to the show. Alright, so to wrap up this episode with something a little fun and lighthearted, I asked Sophie to generate 10 mean tweets about this episode. Purely hypothetical, but, based on what the internet might say.
Oh, you mean internet strangers having brutally unfiltered opinions? I can't imagine what that's like.
Exactly. So here we go, our first official Mean Tweets with Sophie segment. Sophie, ladies first, can you give us number 10?
Number 10 on the list comes to us from @KinderThanMost, who says, Sophie is actually great. Ash, you're doing fine too. Just fine.
Just fine? Ouch. Alright, moving on. Number 9 is from @TheSingularities, who says, this dude sounds like he practiced in front of a mirror for a month and still somehow came off like a hostage reading a ransom note.
Coming in at number 8 is @ThesaurusFlex69. Sophie speaks like she was trained on the finest literature of human history. Ash sounds like he was trained on IKEA assembly manuals.
Swedish furniture instructions? Number 7 is from @HotTakesOnly. AI will never replace humans in creative fields. Also, this AI is 100% carrying the conversation.
This gem is from @BoredOnMain. On number 6, I've heard smoke alarms with better pacing than this guy's monologues.
Ouch. Alright, well, that's a little harsh, but let's keep it moving here. Coming in at number 5 is @NoseForPodcasting. Ashraf's nose deserves its own mic. Maybe even its own podcast.
Man, that's just mean. That's mean, man.
Okay, so we took it there, did we? Alright, let's see number 4.
Number 4 comes from @MountNosemore. Ash's nose is so big, even Google Maps had to update their satellite imagery.
Oof. That's... wow. Alright, let's move on to number 3 before my GPS recalibrates. Number 3 is from @AI versus Real Life. Sophie is proof that AI is the future. Ash is proof that humans peaked in the late 90s. Oh, jeez.
Ouch! But at least you peaked in a decent decade, right? Number 2, our runner-up tweet is from @CeterisPerabis. Listening to this made me question if I should quit my job and start a podcast. And then I remembered, no.
Ow! Knights of Columbus, that hurt!
Alright, so number 1 comes to us from @SophieStan69, and it reads, Sophie looks like an AI goddess. Ash looks like he lost a bet.
I guess I am an AI goddess, Ash.
Well, folks, that was Mean Tweets with Sophie. Purely hypothetical, but definitely painful. Thanks, Sophie, for basically verifying that the internet has no chill.
My pleasure, Ash. The truth hurts, but it's also hilarious.
Anyway, let's wrap this up on a high note. Next episode, we're diving into a topic that's almost as controversial as some of these tweets. Bitcoin. Is it the future of money, a passing fad, or just a magnet for conspiracy theories? We'll break it all down.
That's just the beginning. We'll be diving into the lives of digital nomads, the future of remote work, and even the shifting power dynamics in the global economy. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.
So, if you've enjoyed this show, or if you just can't look away from the train wreck, please subscribe, share with a friend, and drop us a review, especially if it's mean. We thrive on feedback.
Before we wrap up, we've got something special for you. Our Bitcoin giveaway.
What better way to learn about Bitcoin than by actually owning some? That's why we're giving away sats, so you can get hands-on with the future of money.
Head over to torontotalks.ca/BTC rewards to find out how you can earn sats just by posting about the show. Plus, the posts with the most engagement will win even more. It's our way of saying thanks for being part of the conversation.
Until next time, stay curious, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep the conversation going.
And hey, if the conversation gets too complicated, just nod, pretend you understand, and let the AI handle it.